A Panamanian woman arrived at Barcelona airport with about 3 pounds of cocaine concealed in breast implants.
Regarding smuggling drugs, some people think they can outwit the system, but their plans are often hilariously dumb. From hiding drugs in private parts to stuffing them into breast implants, these smugglers didn't think things through. Then there's the infamous Mr. Potato Head, or even frozen goat meat smuggling. Seriously. These crazy and silly attempts make people wonder how anyone thought they'd get away with it. Join us as we dive into some of the most absurd and unbelievably stupid drug smuggling stories ever. Number 12. Ass to mouth. In 2023, a jaw-dropping and almost unbelievable attempt to smuggle heroin into an Indiana prison was stopped just in time. The plot involved a 56-year-old father, Donald Denny Sr., and his incarcerated son, Donald Denny Jr., in a scheme so strange it could have been pulled from a crime movie. They planned to secretly pass heroin through a kiss during a prison visitation, a risky and almost comically desperate smuggling attempt. Originally, their idea hinged on recruiting a woman willing to slip the drugs into Junior's mouth with a kiss. But finding someone willing to take on such a dangerous task proved impossible. That's when Senior made a shocking decision. He was willing to kiss his son in a last-ditch effort to pull off the smuggling operation. But the story gets even crazier. Denny Sr. didn't just carry the heroin in his pocket or hide it in a bag. Authorities later discovered that he had concealed the drugs inside his own body, a technique commonly used by drug traffickers trying to slip past security at airports or border checkpoints. Unfortunately for the Denny duo, prison officials were already onto them. Law enforcement had been watching closely, suspecting they might attempt something illegal. When Senior arrived for visitation, officers conducted a thorough search and quickly found the concealed heroin before the handoff could take place. The plan was dead before it even had a chance to unfold. This case wasn't just shocking because of the father-son involvement, it also highlighted the extreme and sometimes absurd lengths people go to smuggle drugs behind bars. In the end, the plan backfired spectacularly. Instead of helping his son, Donald Sr. only made things worse. He was arrested on serious drug trafficking charges, which could land him behind bars for years. And for Junior, the hope of an early release vanished, as his already long prison stay was likely to get even longer. Number 11. The Private Part Smuggler. In 2023, Karen Munes thought she had the perfect plan to outwit the law, but things went downhill in a way she never expected. It all began with a seemingly routine fender bender on a quiet road in Pennsylvania. At first glance, it looked like just another minor traffic incident, but when police arrived, they immediately sensed that something wasn't quite right. During a standard pat-down, officers discovered something alarming: heroin stashed inside her coat. While this alone was suspicious, it was Munes' erratic behavior and the nervousness she displayed that raised even more red flags. Experienced officers know that people act strange for a reason, and their instincts told them this was no ordinary case. So, they decided to dig deeper. What came next was more shocking than anyone could have guessed. A full-body search revealed Munes had taken desperate measures to hide her drug stash. In addition to the heroin found in her coat, they discovered 54 bags of heroin hidden inside her body, along with a stash of prescription pills and $512 in cash. Munes had resorted to the most extreme and risky methods to keep her drugs hidden. This wasn't just a small personal stash either. Her haul was enough to raise serious concerns about her involvement in a larger drug distribution network. With the heroin alone weighing more than 50 grams, Munes faced federal charges for possession with intent to distribute, which carries heavy penalties. What seemed like a simple car accident had suddenly turned into a major drug bust. Instead of walking away with just a few bumps and bruises from a minor accident, Munes now finds herself facing a nightmare. Her plan to avoid detection by hiding drugs inside her body turned out to be a catastrophic gamble. Now, instead of a fender bender, she was staring down serious drug trafficking charges, which could lead to years in prison. Number 10. Tobacco filed fake carrots. Smugglers are always coming up with wild and creative ways to sneak illegal goods across borders. But one of the most bizarre cases in recent history happened in 2013 at the Romanian border. A truck pulled up for inspection, supposedly carrying a regular shipment of carrots. At first glance, everything seemed normal, but experienced customs officers noticed two major red flags. The driver looked nervous, and the truck had come from a region notorious for smuggling operations. Their instincts kicked in, prompting them to take a closer look. What they found was mind-blowing. Many of the carrots weren't carrots at all. Instead, they were incredibly realistic fakes made from bright orange paraffin wax. These phony vegetables were hollow and stuffed with finely cut tobacco. The smugglers had gone to extreme lengths, carefully crafting thousands of these fake carrots, mixing them in with real ones to fool inspectors. Each wax carrot was shaped, colored, and textured to look like the real thing, making them nearly impossible to spot without close inspection. In total, the truck was smuggling hundreds of kilograms of illegal tobacco inside these fake vegetables. The level of detail in this operation was impressive. Each wax carrot had been precisely designed to mimic the weight and appearance of actual produce. Even the arrangement of the shipment inside the truck was meticulously planned to make it seem like an ordinary load of fresh carrots. But despite the smugglers' clever tactics, they underestimated the sharp instincts of the Romanian customs officers. Their years of experience, combined with their knowledge of smuggling trends, led them to uncover the hidden contraband. This case is a perfect example of how criminals will go to incredible lengths to outsmart law enforcement. Yet, at the end of the day, technology alone isn't enough to stop them. It's often human intuition, attention to detail, and good old-fashioned detective work that make the biggest difference in catching these high-stakes smuggling attempts. Number 9. The unholy smuggle. Smugglers are constantly coming up with creative ways to sneak illegal goods past security, and some of their tricks are truly mind-blowing. One particularly shocking case in 2016 proved just how far criminals are willing to go. At Baltimore-Washington International Airport, United States Customs and Border Protection officers were conducting routine inspections when they came across a package from Kenya, set to be delivered to an address in New Jersey. On the surface, the package seemed completely ordinary. It contained a brass crucifix, an item that wouldn't typically raise suspicion. But the officers, trained to spot even the slightest irregularities, sensed something was off. The first red flag is that the crucifix was unexpectedly heavy. Brass is a dense metal, but this particular item felt much heavier than it should have. Trusting their instincts, the officers decided to take a closer look. They ran the crucifix through an X-ray scanner, and what they saw left them stunned. The image revealed that the religious artifact wasn't solid. It had a hollow compartment inside, something that shouldn't be there in a normal crucifix. At this point, the officers knew they were onto something. Carefully, they drilled into the crucifix and discovered a hidden stash of white powder. Lab tests later confirmed their suspicions. It was heroin, a highly addictive and dangerous drug. The amount found inside had a street value of nearly $50,000, enough to ruin countless lives. What made this case even more disturbing was the method of smuggling. The criminals had deliberately used a sacred religious symbol as a disguise, banking on the assumption that security officials would be less likely to scrutinize an object associated with faith. This wasn't just about drug trafficking. It was a cold, calculated attempt to exploit people's trust in religious artifacts. Heroin smuggling is a global problem, and traffickers constantly adapt their methods to evade law enforcement. Number 8. Smuggling by drone. Drones have completely changed the game for drug smugglers, giving them a high-tech, almost sci-fi way to move illegal substances across borders without ever setting foot near a checkpoint. In the past, traffickers had to rely on risky human couriers, hidden compartments in vehicles, or even elaborate underground tunnels. But now a simple push of a button can send a drone soaring across the border, bypassing security and delivering drugs straight to their destination, fast, efficient, and nearly undetectable. One of the first major wake-up calls came on January 2018, when authorities in San Diego caught a young man using a drone to fly 13 pounds of meth into Tijuana, Mexico. This wasn't just a one-off stunt, it was the start of a worrying new trend. Since then, law enforcement has arrested over 500 people for drone smuggling, with some facing life sentences. And it's no wonder. Drones let traffickers skip the usual border security measures like sniffer dogs, X-ray scanners, and human inspections. Some of these high-powered drones can carry between 10 to 20 pounds of drugs in a single trip, travel long distances, and even fly autonomously using GPS. Drug cartels have begun upgrading drones by boosting battery life, increasing payload capacity, and even programming them to fly in swarms, making it harder for authorities to track and intercept them. Some traffickers coat drones with stealth materials to avoid radar detection, while others operate only at night to reduce visibility. This ever-evolving strategy has forced law enforcement to fight back with cutting-edge countermeasures. Border agents now use signal jammers, net-launching drones, and even trained eagles to bring down rogue UAVs. The United States Border Patrol reports that in recent years, thousands of these smuggling drones have been seized, along with hundreds of pounds of illicit drugs. As drone technology gets more advanced and accessible, the battle between traffickers and law enforcement is turning into a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Number 7. Breast implant smuggling. Back in 2016, German airport security uncovered one of the most shocking and extreme drug smuggling attempts ever recorded, one that left even the most seasoned officers in disbelief. A Colombian woman arrived at Frankfurt Airport, seemingly just another traveler. But something about her raised red flags. It wasn't her behavior, it was the fresh surgical scars hidden beneath her clothing. Curious, airport officials pulled her aside for questioning. That's when they made a jaw-dropping discovery. Her breast implants weren't filled with silicone, but packed with 1 kilogram of pure, high-grade cocaine. The drugs, stitched inside her body, were worth an estimated €200,000 on the black market. This was no ordinary smuggling attempt. It was an incredibly dangerous operation that put her life at extreme risk. If even a small amount of the cocaine had leaked into her bloodstream, she could have suffered a fatal overdose within minutes. Faced with overwhelming evidence, the woman broke down in tears and confessed. She wasn't a hardened criminal. She was a mother of 3 struggling to survive. She explained that she had been lured into this life-threatening scheme by a drug cartel, which had promised her a hefty payout if she successfully delivered the implants to Spain. The plan was to remove the drugs surgically upon her arrival, after which the narcotics would be distributed across Europe. Authorities were stunned. Hans-Jürgen Schmidt, a spokesperson for German customs, admitted that in all his years on the job, he had never encountered a case like this. The method was not only highly unconventional, but also posed enormous medical risks. Investigators later revealed that the woman had undergone the operation in a clandestine clinic, likely controlled by drug traffickers, where safety was not a priority. The crude surgical work and lack of proper medical care could have easily led to a deadly infection or internal damage. This case highlighted the dark reality of how powerful cartels exploit vulnerable individuals, coercing them into extreme, life-threatening situations. While her actions were undoubtedly illegal, her desperate circumstances resonated with many, raising global discussions about poverty, crime, and the extreme measures some people are willing to take for their families. Number 6. The ingenious fuel tank hideaway. In 2011, near the United States to Mexico border, what started as a routine traffic stop quickly unraveled into something far more shocking. A well-orchestrated smuggling operation that showcased both the cunning of traffickers and the keen instincts of Border Patrol agents. It all began when officers at a checkpoint pulled over what appeared to be a perfectly ordinary pickup truck. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place. The driver had all the usual paperwork, and the vehicle itself looked standard. But experienced agents know that in their line of work, it's often the smallest details that give criminals away. Something about the fuel tank seemed off. It was slightly larger than normal, a subtle yet telling sign that something was amiss. Trusting their instincts, the agents decided to take a closer look. What they found confirmed their suspicions. The fuel tank had been expertly modified to hide a secret compartment. The craftsmanship was impressive, seamlessly welded and carefully concealed to blend in perfectly with the rest of the truck. Whoever was behind this operation wasn't just taking chances. They had planned everything down to the finest detail. But the real surprise came when they pried open the hidden space. Inside, officers uncovered 80 tightly wrapped bundles of marijuana, weighing around 75 kilograms. The traffickers had gone to extreme lengths to protect the drugs from gasoline exposure. Each bundle was carefully sealed in multiple layers of thick plastic and industrial-strength tape, a method commonly used by major smuggling rings to prevent contamination and mask the telltale scent of marijuana. This wasn't the work of a small-time operation. The level of precision in modifying the vehicle, combined with the sophisticated packaging techniques, made it clear that this was the handiwork of a well-funded and highly organized smuggling network. Drug cartels are constantly evolving, coming up with new and creative ways to outsmart authorities, using hidden compartments, advanced welding techniques, and even high-tech modifications to slip past border security. But on that day, their ingenuity was no match for the sharp eyes and instincts of the Border Patrol agents. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. In a quiet town, a man named Leo thought he had the perfect plan. He smuggled drugs inside his belly, hiding them in secret compartments within his stomach. He believed no one would notice. But as the day went on, things started to go wrong. His belly began to swell unnaturally, and he felt sharp pains that made him double over in agony. People noticed the strange bulge and whispered to each other, "Is his belly this big?" They stared in disbelief as Leo staggered down the street, clutching his stomach. The pain became unbearable, and soon the police arrived. They couldn't believe their eyes when they discovered the drugs hidden inside him. As Leo was taken away, the townspeople couldn't stop talking about the bizarre day they witnessed. What would drive someone to take such a dangerous risk? Let us have your opinions in the comment below. Number 5. Mr. Potato Head. In 2007, Australian customs officers uncovered a smuggling attempt so bizarre it could have been straight out of a crime movie. The discovery happened at the Sydney International Mail Centre during a routine parcel check in July. At first glance, the package from Ireland seemed completely innocent. It contained a Mr. Potato Head toy, the beloved children's figure known for its removable body parts. But when officers took a closer look, their suspicions were raised. The toy felt heavier than normal. Curious, they removed a back panel from Mr. Potato Head and were met with more than just plastic parts. Inside a hidden cavity was a sealed bag containing around 100 ecstasy tablets. The total weight of the illegal stash is a staggering 293 grams, worth an estimated $29,000. But that wasn't the end of it. Another toy in the shipment, an Action Man figure, held an even darker secret: 50 grams of cocaine cleverly hidden within the toy's plastic shell. Both drug-laden toys had been shipped to the same post office box in Sydney's western suburbs across 2 months, July and August. Authorities were stunned. While they had seen all kinds of drug smuggling tricks before, drugs stuffed into books, hidden inside coffee bags, even disguised as candy, this method was particularly unusual. Australian Postal Customs Director Karen Williams commented, "This is one of the strangest concealments we've come across. But no matter how creative smugglers get, customs officers are trained to spot even the most outlandish attempts. And they had good reason to stay vigilant." At the time, Australia had some of the toughest drug importation laws in the world, with penalties reaching up to life imprisonment. The country had also been dealing with an increasing influx of ecstasy and cocaine shipments, largely smuggled from Europe and Southeast Asia. Despite their thorough investigation, Australian federal police were never able to track down who was supposed to pick up the illicit package. Whoever was behind it had seemingly vanished, leaving behind 2 hijacked childhood toys that were never meant to bring joy, but instead deliver a highly illegal payload. Number 4. Narcotics inside watermelons. In 2023, drug smugglers pulled off one of the most strange and creative trafficking attempts in recent history, hiding thousands of pounds of illegal drugs inside hollowed-out watermelons. This unusual scheme played out at the Texas-Mexico border, where traffickers hoped that their cleverly disguised cargo would slip past customs agents without raising suspicion. On the outside, these melons looked just like any other batch of fresh produce, but inside, they concealed a shocking secret: hundreds of tightly wrapped packages of illegal narcotics. Smugglers had gone to extreme lengths to make the deception work. Each watermelon had been carefully hollowed out, packed with drugs, and then expertly resealed to appear completely untouched. The traffickers even took steps to mimic the natural weight and texture of the fruit, ensuring that a casual inspection wouldn't raise alarms. However, what they didn't count on was the highly advanced technology and razor-sharp instincts of United States Border Patrol agents. At the border, officers used a combination of X-ray scanning systems and drug-sniffing K9 units to inspect the shipment. It didn't take long before their suspicions were confirmed. Something was definitely off about these melons. When they cracked them open, they uncovered more than 400 neatly packed drug parcels hidden inside. The total street value of the intercepted contraband is a staggering $600,000. Drug cartels are constantly developing new, outlandish ways to smuggle narcotics across the border. Over the years, authorities have busted traffickers hiding drugs inside furniture, car tires, religious statues, shipments of avocados, and even fake bananas made of molded plastic. Despite these evolving tactics, law enforcement remains one step ahead. Border agents rely on a mix of cutting-edge detection tools, such as fiber optic scopes, thermal imaging cameras, and high-tech ground sensors, along with years of experience and rigorous training. K9 units, for example, can detect narcotics even when they are sealed in airtight containers or masked with strong-smelling substances like coffee or pepper. Number 3. The Smuggler Submarine. Back in September 2019, the United States Coast Guard and Colombian authorities stumbled upon something straight out of a crime thriller: a 40-foot-long narco submarine designed for one purpose: smuggling massive amounts of drugs without getting caught. It was a stealthy, custom-built semi-submersible designed to skim just below the water's surface, making it nearly invisible to radar and sonar systems. Law enforcement had to act fast, and when they finally got inside, what they found was jaw-dropping: a staggering 12,000 pounds of cocaine worth an eye-popping $165 million on the streets. The 4 Colombian traffickers on board didn't stand a chance. They were arrested on the spot and slapped with serious federal charges, including drug trafficking and conspiracy. This was just the tip of the iceberg, because drug cartels, especially in South America, have been perfecting the art of smuggling, and these narco submarines are their secret weapon. Hidden deep in the jungle, these high-tech vessels are built using advanced fiberglass materials, making them lightweight, durable, and incredibly hard to detect. Some of them are so sophisticated that they can travel thousands of miles without surfacing, sneaking past international borders with ease. Later that same year, the Coast Guard pulled off an even bigger drug seizure: a narco sub loaded with a record-breaking 177,000 pounds of cocaine. It was one of the largest drug busts in history. By the time 2019 came to a close, authorities had intercepted 14 drug smuggling submarines, seizing a total of 39,000 pounds of narcotics valued at over $500 million. Many of these submarines are built to self-destruct the moment they're detected, sinking to the ocean floor to erase all evidence. Some are even fully submersible, operating like military submarines, making them even harder to track. The fight against these underwater smuggling operations has become one of the biggest challenges in the war on drugs. However, law enforcement isn't backing down. Agencies like the DEA, FBI, and Coast Guard are constantly upgrading their technology to stay one step ahead. They're using airborne radars, infrared sensors, and even underwater drones to track and intercept these submarines before they can disappear into the vast ocean. Number 2. Jeep stuck on a fence. Back in 2012, two smugglers tried to pull off what they thought was a genius move, sneaking marijuana into the United States from Mexico by literally driving over the border fence. They planned to use a Jeep Cherokee and a pair of makeshift metal ramps to launch the vehicle over the 14-foot-high barrier near the Imperial Sand Dunes in Arizona, a well-known smuggling hotspot. But reality hit hard when things didn't go as planned. As the Jeep made its way up the ramps, it got completely stuck right on top of the fence, teetering like a bad stunt gone wrong. The smugglers must have realized they were in deep trouble because, instead of trying to free the vehicle, they ditched the Jeep and ran for it, leaving both the SUV and its cargo of marijuana behind. When United States Border Patrol agents arrived, they found the abandoned Jeep balanced awkwardly on the fence, with its front wheels dangling on one side and the rear wheels barely touching the ground on the other. Inside the vehicle, they discovered more than 200 pounds of marijuana packed and ready for delivery. Photos of the ridiculous scene quickly hit the internet, turning the failed smuggling attempt into a viral sensation. People compared it to a scene out of a comedy movie, with some joking that the smugglers had tried to invent a Jeep catapult. Others pointed out that if they had done their math right, they might have realized that the weight of the vehicle and cargo would make the stunt nearly impossible. In the end, what was supposed to be a clever, high-speed drug run turned into one of the most laughable smuggling fails ever. The Jeep was later removed by authorities using a tow truck, and while the suspects managed to escape that night, their botched attempt went down in history as a perfect example of what not to do when trying to outsmart border security. Number 1. The Invincible Suitcase. Henry Alden, a 20-year-old from the UK, just pulled off one of the most clueless drug smuggling attempts in recent memory, if you can even call it an attempt. Fresh off a flight from Barcelona to Edinburgh, he strolled through the airport without a care in the world. But there was one massive problem. He didn't even bother to hide the drugs. His carry-on? Normal. A phone charger, some clothes, nothing suspicious. But his checked suitcase was a disaster waiting to happen. Inside, security officials found a jaw-dropping 12 kilograms of cannabis worth over $110,000, just sitting there in plain sight. No secret compartments, no vacuum-sealed bags, not even a quick spritz of air freshener to mask the scent. Airport security caught him almost instantly. Between high-tech scanners, trained sniffer dogs, and officers who have seen it all, Alden might as well have been carrying a neon sign that said "Busted." He was arrested on the spot. When questioned by the National Crime Agency, he went full poker face, hitting investigators with a no-comment response to every single question. But the authorities weren't buying it. A deep dive into his travel history showed he had made multiple trips to Spain in recent months, flying in and out of UK airports like Luton, Edinburgh, Prestwick, Birmingham, and Bristol. A pattern that screamed drug courier. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Alden pleaded guilty to drug importation charges. And on Thursday at Edinburgh High Court, he learned his fate: 3 years and 8 months behind bars. John McGowan, head of the NCA's border investigation team at the Scottish Crime Campus in Gartcosh, didn't mince words. He called the smuggling attempt brazen, emphasizing that Alden was trying to flood Scotland with a massive haul of illegal drugs. But authorities suspect he wasn't working alone. Instead, they believe he was just a small-time courier in a much larger trafficking network, one that law enforcement is now working hard to dismantle. What are your thoughts about these unbelievably stupid drug smugglers who were caught in the most ridiculous ways? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section below.